I have such a love-hate relationship with Twitter. Like a huge portion of my income comes because of my Twitter, whether it's through sponsored content or the people that I meet. But for years, like I was not good in person with people for a very long time. I was cripplingly shy. Like a joke, like a very serious, real joke is that I don't think I hit on my first girl at a bar till I was like 26. I couldn't talk to people, but I knew how to use the internet to meet people. Like I remember when I got to college, my dorm mates were really into Alexis on Fire, who I'd never heard of at the time. Gave me a CDRW, if people remember those, of like their entire catalog. Yeah. And then the whole way I got into the music blog scene, I was like, wait, there's something called Twitter where I can meet other people who like didn't live in my hometown who like the same music as me. And that's how Mind Equals Blown was founded.
Welcome to the Emo Social Club podcast, broadcasting to you live from emosocialclub.tv. I am Brian.
And I'm Lizzie, and we're talking tonight with basically extraordinary social media guru, journalist, writer, and music extraordinaire from behind the scenes, Jack Appleby, tonight.
A lot of
very cool to finally chat with you.
Music extraordinaire seems aggressive.
Maybe. I was like riffing a little bit going off of there. That's the radio in me.
Yeah, guy who wrote for music blogs back when music blogs were a thing.
I mean, that's an extraordinaire. I mean,
yeah,
we'll take that.
You helped pave the way for a lot of things. You broke some really insane things, and you know what? Look at where you are now.
Yeah,
it was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
I mean, do you want to tell us a little bit about like kind of your background, what you're into now, like? Give us a little bit of a rundown of Jack.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so like hi everybody, hi Twitch world. So I'm Jack Appleby. Currently I work as a creator in the marketing space. I write a newsletter called Future Social. I worked in social media and advertising for like the last 10 years, running social for brands like Beats by Dre and Spotify and Verizon and a bunch of video game accounts, TV show Community. And that's all like corporate me and fun. That's what I do professionally now. But like way back in the day, I was a music blogger. I wrote for Absolute Punk during its heyday, wrote for Alt Press there for a spell. I was a co-founder of a website called Mind Equals Blown. Writing that like sweet, God, I mean, how many years ago is it now? Like a decade? Something like that. Like when we all like were writing for these blogs, and that's what we did, how we talked about music before things like Release Radar like stole our lunch.
Lizzie, how did you interact? Because I'm 36, so this is like my generation of like Absolute Punk and MP3.com and like all of these website MySpace that I'd be like checking for new music on. But what's your experience with all of this as a young person?
I had like forums because when it was like 2009 to 2012, that's when I was in high school. And I did a lot of like fanfiction.net writing. So I went on forums for those specific,
we got to change the
for those specific things I was in.
It's called Tumblr. Let's call it what it is.
No, and fanfiction.net.
Oh my God.
So those are like the forums I had. But when I got into undergrad, a couple years into undergrad after I transferred to where I graduated from, that's when I started to like look at, I should probably start to write for like these other music blogs, like build my portfolio and things like that. So I got like the tail end of where we are now with these like independent music publications rather than blogs. And I find that it's so interesting because so many more people now who are either cultural editors or writers, even like some journalists are out there. And yes, those are different things, everybody. Are starting to have like their own independent blogs, but they can subscribe to them, which I think is so interesting because they're newsletters. But when you read it, it looks like a blog. The way you format it is like a blog. And I find that it's so interesting that we've basically changed it to sound more adult rather than just saying, here's my blog. Can you check it out?
Totally. It's like a full rebrand. And like they're functionally the exact same. Like I always joke, like, can someone bring Zanga back, please? Like I miss those days. like when we were all like real casual with like long form writing of our own. But like, I mean, yeah, it's like we've just called them newsletters. They're just blogs with distribution. That's all they are.
Yeah, true. Look, I just think about MySpace bulletins all the time and how like I didn't need to write on my live journal anymore, and I could just write on the bulletins, and that was the way. I remember like MySpace turning me on to Skrillex because of From First to Last, and then I'm seeing Skrillex like typing to the world on bulletins, and I'm like, man, this guy will never be the biggest artist in the world in 2012, and then here we are.
Hello.
I mean, I've never been able to describe what I'm feeling more than with the MySpace profile song. I've just been lost culturally since then.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that Instagram allows you to do it, but it's only if you post it in like your story or on an actual like post of the day. I'm like, that's not the same. And you can't search like the really niche stuff. Like I want like my song of the day is Imaginary by Evanescence, but the demo version specifically.
Yes.
Thank you, LimeWire.
No, I mean, I mean, if you want to get really dorky social, like, no, like nothing's ever truly replaced the MySpace profile song. Instagram has lots of options now. You post a still photo, you can actually add a song to it now in like your primary feed. But like, there's nothing where like, we just don't visit profiles the way we used to. It's another part of this. Like MySpace we mostly like clicked on other people's profiles. Early Facebook went to their profile. We just all live in the feeds now. So not only is there like not a replacement for it, there's not even really a good place to put that stuff, unfortunately. So I just spam people in stories because when you click my face on Instagram, you have no idea what I'm going to share with you. So I'm going to force emojis down your throat.
So what do you think, like, I mean, I guess if that's not the replacement, because obviously, yeah, the timeline, like, I don't know, now you're making me nostalgic for like, yeah, I want to go to somebody's page and see what they wrote, right? Like, if I'm following Jack Appleby, I'm going to go like, I got to check his page today and see like what he's writing about, like what band he's talking about today or something like that. So what do you think like the current day version of these like music blogs is, or even like written discoverability of music?
I mean, you got me. I have no idea. Like for the last couple of years, I tried to do my own version, like just because I missed writing about this stuff, where every Friday I did a New Music Friday Instagram story, and it would be like a 10-part Instagram story where like a new song, it was about a new song that came out. It would be like my personal history with that band, or like why I liked them, how they got there. And I did that every Friday for like 3 years. And I had a mixture of friends go, man, that's cool. I discovered stuff I would have never thought of. And then I had other friends who went, just so you know, I've muted your Instagram forever, or I watch it with sound off. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like you guys can have it your way, like whatever works. Like, but I mean, never found a way on social to share our personal taste like that. I mean, before that, it was the aim away message. Those places just don't exist anymore. And like, it's a shame because like we're kind of all slaves to New Music Friday playlists and Release Radar playlists, which are great inventions. But to your point, like the music conversation that would exist like in an Absolute Punk blog or in someone's commentary, like it's much harder to find than it used to be.
We've talked about here about how it's not about discoverability. It's about curation because there's just too much shit. And now you need somebody who's like a quote unquote tastemaker. I don't want anybody listening to this to think, oh wow, this guy's saying tastemaker. He's like a DJ, like a vibe curator, you know? Like,
a vibe curator.
But you need somebody who is like, hey, I know a little bit, or I like this stuff and I want to, you know, promote new bands. It's like, it's kind of just having that vibe about you where it's like, oh, I'm gonna say these bands are good. I like this new band.
I mean, if we're being honest, like that's how Absolute Punk was ran. Like each staff writer had their individual tastes. Like, I mean, I was kind of known for being the like slightly more technical side of the emo rock scene. So like, I was a big Triple Crown guy. Like I would sometimes vent, like I grew up with like post-hardcore music. I would post it sometimes, but like Moving Mountains from Indian Lakes, like Rare Future, like that kind of stuff is what I like. And no one told us what to do on that site. I could post news about whatever band I wanted. So like we kind of were those like mini creators or influencers that just happen to live within one website. Really, if we're being honest, more than we were journalists.
I was about to say, this sounds like you had beats, but you were probably just being like, hey, I like this band. Listen to it. Okay, bye.
Totally. I mean, like my favorite thing to do with Absolute Punk was to get absolute exclusives for bands that were smaller. Like that was very fun for me because at the time, like the Absolute Punk homepage was a great driver of traffic. Like it could put people on to bands that didn't exist. And that changed greatly. Like that is early. Like, I mean, when I first worked for Absolute Punk, songs were getting debuted on bands' MySpaces. Like this is a different generation. And as as YouTube became a bigger role, like I remember we were getting fights with publicists because when we debuted a song, we'd want to host it on the Absolute Punk YouTube account, and the bands and labels wanted to host it on the record label accounts. And us being like young dumb bloggers didn't understand why our request was wildly unreasonable because it was a changing generation of content. And it also changed like how we do that kind of stuff where it's like I remember when we kind of started to focus less on that stuff at Absolute Punk because of that. So like we saw a lot of evolution in how we talk about music, and like I miss it deeply. And I don't know where to talk about it. I don't know if it's because I'm 34 and I'm in a different generation than like people usually like discuss that kind of stuff now. I don't know if it's because Spotify has just made it so we live inside the playlist. Like you guys tell me, where do we talk about this stuff now?
It's pretty
Twitch.
much on Twitter or TikTok. But even on TikTok, you have a bunch of bands that this is where like the whole industry plant thing kind of came out. With Gail, who does that ABCFU song, because she was an industry plant, but now there's a bunch of other bands that are on there that we know are not industry plants, like Meet Me at the Altar. I've been following them for years before they got signed, and I was like, oh, they're very much not this, but because people see them stylistically, like in like very nice videos, or they're saying, hey, we're going on tour after tour after tour with these larger bands. People are like, you must be industry plants because there's no way you went from working hard, busting your ass, doing the DIY way to being signed to a label. And of course, everyone thinks that it's glamorous on the label too, when it's really not. But that's where you find it. But then if you listen to a band, sometimes you're like, oh, this is like a band that is manufactured, but then it's the whole conversation of, well, is it okay to like a manufactured band like that? Because there have been so many. I mean, one was like the Sex Pistols, and that arguably is one of the biggest kickstarted of, punk music.
It's true.
So that's kind of like the conversation we're having. But I found a lot of really great bands and also a lot of great friends who are in like really sick bands strictly through like Twitter and networking and just scouring all these other like smaller independent blogs and posts and just like being nosy in people's comments.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, I mean, I've found bands through TikTok. Like some of my most playing music from the last like couple of years, a band called Ben Quaid, who like they're like they're great. I mean, I found them when they had like 2,000 TikTok followers because the algorithm just figured out that I wanted like Midwest like heavier emo. And that was like one of my most played albums, Arrows in Action, just like randomly came up my feed. And like, what is that song called? I forget. I'll find it later. But like, I was obsessed with it. It became one of my most played songs that year. So like, I use it for music searching, but it also to me feels more, and maybe it's because I'm just not interacting. I'm not in the comments enough. It's kind of just another like delivery service. Like it's like pure volume for the new generation. I miss debating and just like, not even debating, just like discussing like when I wrote for some of my favorite things to do for both Alt Press and Absolute Punk were Alt Press had the 100 bands you need to know issue, and Absolute Punk had the Absolute 100, where it was it was once a year thing, and it was a big beat. Like, and we again was not scientific. Each writer just kind of had X amount of slots to give of their own, but like that was a big music place where we as writers became known for our taste. We got to show off bands that we thought were great that weren't going to get attention. And then that would just cause discussion in the comments, in the forums. And like we found new music that way. I miss that stuff. Where is it?
I feel like you could do that on TikTok through like stitching, but then people just get really shitty with it because they'll just like comment on things that don't matter. And then you have to restitch them to do it. And the discourse is just absolutely messy. And then someone's like, I'm calling this creator out now. And I'm like, whoa, we escalated so quickly. I just wanted to see if you thought that they're like number 2 or they should be number 30. That's it. I don't want anything else.
It's crazy. Like I do have this theory. So like Zach Cirillo is one of a good buddy of mine who ran Property of Zach way back when. And I've bugged him before. I have this theory that you could recreate Absolute Punk as an Instagram account, that you could do the whole thing. That like album reviews can be individual posts, that you can do song debuts through reels, that Instagram comments are a perfectly worthy place for discussion of stuff, like Instagram highlights where like this highlights tour announcements, this highlights album announcements, this highlights album reviews. I do not have the time to do this, but someone please steal it and do it for me so I can follow it.
Free idea for everyone, but Jack is also going to be there in your DMs being like, hey, do it this way, or I swear to God.
Oh, I'm going to troll it. I'll full troll it.
Yeah.
You're going to be up in there instead of the YouTube comments being like, hey, you suck at this.
Yeah.
And then just leave it. That's it.
I'll say for sure, YouTube is not the place.
Well, I mean, it's funny, like referencing like chats I've had with Zach again. I was like, I asked him, I was like, what would blogs look like today? He's like, they wouldn't. They'd be YouTubers. He's like, what punk rock MBA is doing is what we would have all done if we all came back. Which like I always laugh because that means that Brian Stars was 10 years ahead of the curve. If anybody remembers who that was.
We hate to see it. We hate to admit it.
You hate to see it. In retrospect, he drove me nuts back then. In retrospect, he was so far ahead of everybody as far as content creation goes.
Yep. Look, it was a new, like YouTube kind of started to become a thing when I was about to finish college. And I was like, well, at least if everything else falls apart, at least I can do YouTube and be like a creator on YouTube. And now fucking 20 years later, that's what I'm finally doing. So awesome. Great work, me. Yeah.
It's okay. I made AMVs, all right, when YouTube was around. It's fine. We all
questions, Lizzie. We gotta move on. We can't talk
Listen,
about
Brian
this.
just doesn't like my Lincoln Park X Wings Club AMVs, and that's a him problem.
There are different kinds of creators. And honestly, I will give Lizzie credit here. There were a few bands like Linkin Park and all that I listened to because of AMVs at the time. Like, I mean, if you're a Dragon Ball fan and all of a sudden you start seeing Goku throwing Kamehamehas to in the end, you're like, oh shit, like I'm in.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Look,
That's how we all got into video editing, whether we wanted to or not. That was the gateway, was the AMVs.
Lord.
How do I chop up this compilation of Piccolo scenes?
Well, and then you always, at least for me, I always had to go to like these because at least for Wings Club, because that was my main thing I did. I would have to go to like Italian sites and like try to download the clips I needed. Or I would have to go to like different sites that were not in English because that's where it aired out of first before the US. And then I would have to get the censored ones because they didn't play them here because they're too mature. Like not even that much because it was still a kid's show. And I'd be like, I need this to make my little storyline that goes to like Evanescence, everybody's.
Oh my.
We've all come so far.
We have, and look at us now.
I will argue that maybe the reason we don't have as many music discoverability things is because of like we had to struggle and like really just walk uphill 30 miles in the snow to get a Winx AMV done for the internet.
And are the kids nowadays doing it? No, they lack discipline.
It, Yeah, they lack discipline. They lack like hardship. They've got it too easy now. They don't need a music blog. They just have TikTok, I guess. This is what's different. This is me as an old man. Just like this is what's different now.
Oh, I make no mistake. My most old man music take is like I had to figure out which 2 or 3 CDs to ask for Christmas, and that was like a whittling down process. Like, okay, cool. I can probably get my parents spend like $45 on CDs. Which album has the most songs I actually care about? Kids are born with the entirety of music. They have everything.
Look, when I got that Vertical Horizon CD from the mall, when I got Fuel,
dude, you and I gotta have like a sidebar because like these are like core bands for me back in the day.
Yep. It was just the time, man. It's like I gotta go to the mall and I gotta get this, and there was also like My Chem putting out Black Parade. It's like I want to go and experience have the experience of purchasing that from a Hot Topic, even though I worked the Hot Topic. I was like, I'm going to go pick it up from my job on the day it comes out and listen to it in the car. Because I want that experience. And you are missing out on a little bit of that. I don't know if you need to do that with a Fuel record today, but
well, I remember telling my mom, I got to go ride my bike to Kmart. Linkin Park Reanimation came out today.
Oh, hell yeah.
Not the Kmart.
I must go ride my bike to Kmart immediately. It's of the utmost urgency.
I mean, I just think kids these days need, we're gonna make you ride uphill 30 miles. Kids these days.
I will say I'm pretty sure the last CD I ever bought was Danger Days.
Yeah.
Because as soon as Spotify came out and like streaming, me and my family are big early tech adopters. We were like, we're doing this. I haven't had a DVD player in my house in like probably 10, 15 years.
Oh, I'll tangent us one more time before going to questions. My last CD I purchased. So there was a Garth Brooks concert at Notre Dame, like this big televised major event. And I just happened to be like in the area with my girlfriend at the time, her family. We went to it. And I knew we were going to ahead of time. So like Garth Brooks didn't have any of his music on streaming. So I Amazoned his CD of greatest hits and had it in my car. I was like trying to like, it's Garth Brooks. Like some artists transcend their genre. He's one of the biggest artists of all time. I was like, yeah, I would like to know these songs a little more before I go. Went to the show. It was rainy and cold, but it was incredible. Like, fantastic performance. And like 2 years later, I sell my car to my buddy, not knowing that Garth Brooks CD was still in the changer. And as he's pulling out of the driveway with my car that I've had for 12 years, I'm kind of having like an emotional moment. Like, oh my God, I just like sold my car because I'm moving to New York. I just see all these tags on Instagram for it's like, what is happening? As my buddy Travis posting track by track the Garth Brooks album from my car stereo. And this, I mean, that's 4 years ago. This is recent.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right, that's pretty fire though. Look, I'm gonna say that's a good way to discover music.
So buy a car.
Accidentally putting it in.
Just buy a car from somebody, and that person just has to leave it's like geocaching. It's like you got to leave a random thing in a random place.
Music LARPing.
Yeah.
Music LARPing.
Dan's got this car. Is Garth Brooks hard as fuck? This is awesome.
Is this the resurgence of country that we're looking for right now?
Okay.
According to a 2006
now we're tangenting on Garth
XP.
Brooks. Yeah. We're now tangenting on Garth Brooks. I was going hard on how Garth Brooks is like an awesome person the other night. I do not listen to Garth Brooks, but like my friend just was like, oh, I can't believe like people are still into Garth Brooks. I'm like, the dude said, I'm not putting my music on any streaming service. I'm going to start my own streaming service. And he hasn't broken that. You know who has broken that? Taylor fucking Swift. Got all of her music on Spotify. Garth Brooks, better than Taylor Swift when it comes to holding on to your music, not giving it to streaming sites, and making people come to you to listen to your music. All I'm saying.
Garth
about to
versus
get,
Taylor,
like,
the
hate.
fight we've all waited for.
We've all waited for it. And as far as I can tell, the dude just seems like a really humble, nice dude who just wants to live his life and wants to play fun music for people.
He does. I agree.
Yeah. Good dude. Find songs that I definitely am not checking out currently. It's not on the CD changer in any car I've been in recently, but I would listen, I guess, if it came up. I'm discovering right now, this is what the podcast is going to do. We're going to say, this is how you do music discovery in 2023. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Go check out Garth Brooks.
Yeah, and that's it. That's the entire thing, actually.
The forefather of emo, Garth Brooks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dude, that's where you get those friends in low places. That's what I'm saying.
Oh no.
So we said before we started recording that I was going to make you tell us all the secrets to blowing up on social media, all the marketing techniques and all the tricks. And now is the time when I just get all of those secrets and we start getting notoriety as a podcast, I guess. And I want to kind of ask you a little bit about Threads, because as one of the only people that we like knew, because we were coming on the podcast, it's like, okay, Jack is like in the thread right now. Like Jack is like popping up because you're like somebody we actually know. And I don't think a lot of people besides brands and like big names that were kind of being pushed by Instagram Threads, I'm assuming. But you were one of those, at least for when I was scrolling through, and you had a lot of good points. And so I want to get like a little bit of your take on Threads now as a new thing that just came out for music, for bands, for marketing in general, for how we make our podcast thread famous, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Threads is fascinating. It's unprecedented. Like, we've never had a social network that got 100 million users in a week. Like, it's never happened before. And it's like, I mean, for everybody who doesn't know this stuff, like, Threads is a Twitter it's a Twitter clone made by Meta, but you have to log in through your Instagram, which means 100% of the Threads user base also has Instagram, which is a very interesting caveat. I mean, it's so something one of the things that I'm most curious about is, of those 100 million Thread users, how many of them have used Twitter? How many of them are writing short form content for the first time? Like, I saw a study where I think 56% of Instagram users use Twitter. So it's like just over half are the people who sign up for Threads, the 100 million of the 500 million daily Instagram users. Are they the Twitter crowd? Are they curious? Are they like clicking through? Like, I mean, to me, Instagram hasn't even pulled their biggest levers as far as getting people to sign up for Threads. Like, I haven't gotten Instagram stories from Instagram saying like, go do this. Like, it's been fairly organic for the most part, which is even crazier. Like, to me, it's worth everyone should check it out. Like, it's also gifted everyone with Instagram following a Threads following. Like, the reason we all have followers already is because there's a follow all button that most people are clicking. So Instagram's my smallest social network. It has 15,000 followers. In a week, I had 5,000 Threads followers, just because you're pretty much just getting gifted people who follow you on Instagram. So like, there's like Mr. Beast had 1 million followers in less than a day. Like, some people now have like, one way to look at it from a creator perspective or like a music perspective is like, a band has a significant percentage of their following probably follows them on Threads now. And now you can decide, like, if you're a band or a label, what do you want to do with that? Are you microblogging because you have 500 characters there? Are you posting the exact same thing so you can get them in multiple places? Like, we're in the experimental phase. So there's no wrong answers for this stuff. And the question remains, like, will it stick around or not? I think it's worth investing in. And I'm never someone who tells you to be early on a platform because I don't think it's worth it. Like, wait till it develops. This is one more like, you already have the followers. You're already getting engagement on it. Go play around with it because you just don't know.
It was you and Gary V who just popped up all the time, and I had to. I know I had to block Gary V, and this is coming from somebody who has in previous years of my life. Like, listen, I don't think Gary V is 100% wrong about everything. I just think that he is cult of personality more than actually telling you how to do stuff. But certainly after getting his books for free, I learned a little bit about social media from him. But it's like I didn't want to see what he had to take on Threads because it's kind of just the same thing as all the other brands that are like, I'm just going to ask random questions and have a little bit of engagement. It's like, oh man, what do you put on your French fries? I don't give a shit. Bugles. Like, I don't care. Like, who are you?
I mean, totally. Like, I'll say, like, I actually like a lot of Gary's content. Like, I haven't seen what he does on Threads. No, it's one of the challenges with a new social network is everyone's experimenting with who they want to be on this. The brands are there super early this time, which usually the brands aren't there fast. Like, this is new. So everyone's engagement baiting. Everyone who's like, it's good that creators have followings there because creators are going to drive the networks. Like, this is where, like, that's what, if you look at Twitter, 90% of Twitter's content comes from 10% of Twitter users.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So creators being there early is really important. No one knows what to do with Threads yet. And that's why I'm like team copy paste. Because like my Instagram followers, they may or may not know my Twitter. So I'm throwing my tweets up there because that might be new content to them and just seeing what happens. But everything we're seeing right now is in the welcome phase, and welcome content isn't that interesting. Like, I personally don't need to see another brand go, hello, we're on Threads, everybody. It's like, just be you. Like, let's get into it. Let's start.
Like, get with your meme phase. Like, that's what we want right now.
That's the thing.
That's a whole other thing. But like, it's like, just like go, like everyone just like try to act like you've been there and see what works for you and what doesn't. And like, maybe like those early dopamine hits, if you're a creator or a band or a brand, like maybe those like really narrow you into what you want to be doing there. Or maybe you want to keep playing with things for the next 6 months to see what happens. Like, there's no wrong answers, but if you're getting engagement there and you already have followers, it's worth playing around with for sure.
I haven't done too much posting on there of like our content, like the podcast stuff. But when I first started looking through stuff, I noticed that pictures and video on there might be higher quality than some of the stuff you're seeing on Instagram. And I thought that was really weird. It's definitely higher quality than it is on Twitter right now. So if you see a video, like you can probably see a much higher quality video on Threads than you would anywhere else. So I do think like, at least if that, like people should be posting more like video content that you can like, you know, swipe through and look at articles, videos, photos, and that stuff on there. Cause it does seem to be at least higher quality. It keeps you engaged on it. So if I don't know, I'm literally saying, hey, someone should do this, and I'm not doing it. But as an avid reader and watcher of content, I would love to see more high quality video content on the platform.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much there is for us to speculate on at this point, past everything we've said.
Sure.
Like the thing I will say is, one of the things that really intrigues me about it is it's a 500 character platform. So like Twitter, for the most part, is a 240 character platform now. And they have the long form tweets, but if you do a long form tweet, it truncates and has a show more button. Mm-hmm. Threads will show you all 500 characters, which means I can put the most characters on your screen in a social feed that I've ever been able to put. And I think it's been really interesting how like I can give a lot more nuance and context, whereas like the 280 characters, I can get the 2 points in there. But on Threads, I can sneak that last point. It's either a third, like a supplementary point. It can be the caveat point where it's like, I know you're going to reply with this, but like, that's not what we're talking about here. I've really enjoyed that part of it.
I think nuance and context is the reason why it might be more positive and not like Twitter, where you don't have the nuance or context.
Correct.
And as someone whose brain has been broken from trying to explain in a very short period of time on Twitter and reading the short... yeah, nuance and context is a great thing to add to a platform.
Yes. More, please.
Yeah. More background information so everyone can thrive instead of like killing each other. Because that's not the debates we want. We want just to know who's playing good music and who isn't.
Look, depending on the drama you want for the day. Depending. No, yeah. Look, I like some of the negativity sometimes. I won't lie. My brain is broken. I'm an unfortunate person, but sometimes it's fun to just go down like the worst thing you've ever seen a person say. And then a lot of people trying to outdo that in the comments underneath it. Like, this is not good, but I'm going to read it.
I get it. Like, I am on like a very fierce, like positivity train when it comes to social media. Like I've had some like dark days. I've had weird situations where like rumors about businesses I started like took a turn. It's like things that I've learned from Twitter is like that I've stolen money from people, that I block people of certain races or ethnicities. Like Twitter, like, and that stuff, like, I mean, Twitter put me in therapy for the very first time. So like, I'm like pretty on the like, yeah, let's make this place healthy. I mean, like, and then I stuff today, like I have like this guy who's like, this person's been like a terrible troll, like for me for forever. Like he's probably made 50 tweets about me. And I always joke like that just makes him my biggest fan. But one of his things he put up today, where I've always just tried to like ignore, he put up today, I challenged Jack Appleby to a cage match. And I'm just like, actually, yeah, I'm in. Let's go.
Let's go.
I'm ready for the cage
start
match.
training.
Like actually it sounds awesome. I've had this fantasy for a long time.
I feel like I saw that tweet and I thought somebody was just joking. And I'm like, wait, I don't think this guy has done anything anywhere problematic as other people who you would tweet about a cage match who would be.
Listen, it's the internet. Like, I mean, so we were talking about Threads earlier. I put out a strategy guide for Threads. I called it like a Threads 101 strategy. And this person put this tweet up about me saying I was being problematic by putting a strategy out day one, that I couldn't possibly know what I was talking about, that I was setting a poor expectation for other social media managers, like all this like insane garbage. And I saw it like, okay, cool, interesting. Like if you read the article, it literally says, hi, everyone in our industry is asked to have a perspective on day one. Please feel free to copy paste this article to your bosses. But apparently I was being problematic by writing a marketing strategy. So like you learn something new every day.
That's so insane. Like that is just literal crazy people energy.
The internet.
The internet. It's like, it's free to shut the fuck up, but it's also free to say the weirdest and dumbest shit. As we were also saying, I'm just getting the most unhinged comments in our YouTube because of a video we made. And it's like, yeah, I I do feel like it is a certain person who can handle the negativity. I don't think it's a good thing for anyone to be able to handle it. And I certainly don't believe that anybody should be faced with it at a constant rate. I've said to Lizzie, like, Lizzie, I don't want them to have any room for like misogyny or any incel type behavior. I'm like, please target them at the straight white guy. I can fucking handle it. I'm going to be okay. But it's still, they find ways. They find like, oh man, you'll find something to just say the dumbest thing about or the meanest thing about. And I'm happy that there's a more positive social media. It's also why I like Instagram, because it's like, you have to post a photo or you have to post something. You can't just like bullshit it. It's not just like, I typed out for 2 seconds. Like there's a little bit more of like a barrier to posting something on Instagram to be mean or to be rude, except in the comment section, which I also read there, and I'm going to turn it off.
I mean, I would like, you see people post like relationship photos on Instagram, and you see people on Twitter go, people who post relationship photos aren't as happy as they pretend to be. I'm like, I get it. You're a Twitter user. That checks out actually. Like just just stay over there.
It's like you haven't touched grass. You haven't talked to anybody, period. You haven't felt joy in years. Calm down. Other people do. It's fine.
Well, it's tough. Like I was literally having this conversation today because like I have such a love-hate relationship with Twitter. Like a huge portion of my income comes because of my Twitter, whether it's through sponsored content or the people that I meet. But for years, like I was not good in person with people for a very long time. I was a cripplingly shy. Like a joke, like a very serious, real joke is that I used to, like, I don't think I hit on my first girl at a bar till like 26. I couldn't talk to people, but I knew how to use the internet to meet people. Like I remember when I got to college, my dorm mates were really into Alexis on Fire, who I'd never heard of at the time. Gave me a CDRW, if people remember those, of like their entire catalog. Yeah. And then like the whole way I got in the music blog scene, I was like, wait, there's something called Twitter where I can meet other people who like didn't live in my hometown who like the same music as me. And that's how Mind Equals Blown was founded, was like me and 2 other guys found each other who liked post-hardcore music. But then years and years later, like after I built this presence for myself about marketing, like I experienced my first hate on the internet. It was really jarring for me because like that was my safe place to meet people. And when I experienced that first time was during pandemic. So in a 1 week period, like I went through a breakup. Me and my parents stopped speaking to each other over political and family trauma things. And I had the first time people came at me on Twitter for something just like blatantly false about a small business that I ran. And like, I never felt more alone in my life because I had been using the internet to meet people for the last 10 years. And I'm still like, my friend today, she's like, you're still mourning that Twitter will never be this for you again, because now you got to deal with these people all day long. So it's weird.
That's so interesting and terrible at the same time, because I know that some people have talked about third spaces as well. And I think in a way, like social media, like just in general, certain social medias have been that third space for folks, especially during the pandemic where people, a bunch of people started TikToks. So a lot of people started their own independent ventures during this time. And they're like, well, this is my one place I can just like hone in on and focus and not deal with anything else.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So like for me, like it was like, I mean, I felt like I lost like something really important to me and like a really like essential tool for me to connect with people. And like, don't get me wrong, I've like come out the other side. I figured out how to use it again. Like, but I've not been able to find like the same safety with it that I had before. Like, and I mean, a lot of this I think is pandemic stuff. Like people during the most unhinged people were more online than ever. A lot of them built audiences and got new dopamine hits that they weren't used to, and they just stuck around. Like, and I miss the day. Like, I miss the days when I had 10,000 followers. It was a different time. Like now, like with my audience size, like I get hate every day. That's completely nonsensical.
On that note, there's a lot of bands who, obviously I think the interesting thing for like a band having to post on there too, or anybody who's doing a creative thing is like, it's not just like you're posting on there because you're like, I want to talk to people and I want to give my opinion and I want to have conversation. It's also like, hey, our new single just came out. Hey, we have an album coming out. Hey, we're going on tour. And like, it becomes a place where it's also advertising your stuff and putting yourself out there in a way that like most people will never be putting themselves out there because they don't even use their own profile photo and they can say whatever the fuck they want. And I know you're probably on the same page of like, you got to be on every platform. You got to be on Instagram. You got to be posting on TikTok. You got to be doing all this stuff. And so like, how do you think a band should be kind of navigating those types of things on all these platforms now that like we are post quote unquote, again, for the audience at home, quote unquote, post pandemic,
the new normal.
Now that we're like, yeah, the new normal, quote unquote.
Listen, I like to say in the newsrooms, there was a collective AP style agreement that we are technically post pandemic now. It still exists, but it's not the pandemic, everything that we had to encounter before.
If alternative press says that's how we say it, then I'll do it.
Yes.
Got him.
No, I mean, so it's fun. Like, to me, bands and labels alike, especially from like the emo scene, are completely missing the opportunity like that comes with modern social media. Like, I mean, like Braden Bales will be one of my most played albums by the end of the year. Like, he went viral for Chronically Cautious and like had all these TikTok hits, and he's a kid, and like, he's not backed. He actually has signed a record deal, but like, he's a TikToker, and this era of this TikTok musician, that model could absolutely be replicated by a legacy band that's coming back, could be replicated by a brand new pop punk band. And it's just, I just don't think that there's been a ton of strategic thinking in the music social media world. Like, the labels have people, and like the labels will have a lot of good people, but we view TikTok as, what is the artist word? Gail? Is that what we were talking about earlier? Like,
yeah.
So like, we think about like trending songs, and we think about like plants, and there's so much more you can do on TikTok as a band. Like, Arrows in Action is a perfect example. They have like, last time I looked, they had like a couple 100,000 followers. And most of what they do is the same style that a TikTok artist would do, where it's like, they're taking the absolute catchiest part of their choruses. They're eliminating the millennial pause. So like, the music starts right as soon as that TikTok begins. And they're trying different formats of this thing. And the rule of content is like, we all think we got to make new content all the time. Like, I worked at ad agency. If we were paid to make new content, that's not the best strategy for like most of the time, especially for bands. If you got a chorus you believe in, or like it's your best, catchiest thing, pump that out over and over and over and over and over again through as many different formats as possible. Because if it's as good as like, the audience will tell you if they actually like it. The algorithm will get you to your potential audience. But like, to me, like, I'm not seeing the bands like, and again, I'm 34. I'm listening to a lot of legacy bands at this point from the scene. Like, Balance Composure will be one of my most played this year. Like, I found you guys because I was Googling, like, does anybody talk to Bemis and say anything came back? And I listened to that whole interview. Like, Saying Anything's a great one. Like, I would love to work with Max on like showing a generation who he is and what his music looks like, but there's just not that many social strategic thinkers within the music scene.
I think too, there's been so many folks that we've tried to talk to, like either them like legacy bands, or even there's a couple newer acts. We obviously get like a bunch of pressers that are in our email every day. And there was one that like made me stop. I was walking and reading, and I'm like, what are you sending me? They're like, we're this band from here. We have no social media presence. And I'm like, this does nothing for either of us at this point. And I'm like, and I don't even want to listen to your music because this is, again, not going to do anything for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, one of my favorite albums from the last couple of years is a band called Agi, who I only recently figured out that it's pronounced that way. It's ADJY. And they were signed to, I forget which one of the little tiny indies, but then Triple Crown picked them up. That's how I got on them. And Zach actually texted me back, I think this will be your thing. And I was obsessed. Like their last album, it's a 75-minute concept record where there's a story, and then there's a narrator who's telling a different story about that story within it. And there's like, I got a book somewhere because they put out a hardcover book for you to like understand this thing. To me, it's genius. I absolutely love it. They don't have social media, and it drives me insane. Absolutely insane. So I'm one of the only people that's even talked about them. And like, because of my following, their manager even got a hold of me because like, hi, I saw you actually like this band and you do marketing. And I'm like, I don't know how to help you. First of all, I don't have time. But second of all, I don't know how to help you guys. Like, be on the internet. Be there.
I just pulled them up on Spotify and they don't even have like their pictures, their profile pictures, the album cover.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah. They have a cover photo on there. And I mean, you just got me very interested because if it's that big of like a musical project, I'm like, yeah, that's the kind of thing that probably a lot of people would be very into if they knew it existed.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm probably $70 into this band from owning multiple books that they've published about their own music to understand their lyrics and stories. I love concept records, but it's this genius thing. But they have no social. And to me, like, don't get me wrong, like, I don't, from what I've learned about this guy, like, he's like a musical mastermind genius kind of dude. I don't think he's the type who's going to sit there making TikToks. But at the same time, TikToks don't have to be this like cliche slapstick dancey type stuff. Like, TikTok's just a distribution network. Like, this is like therapists are big on TikTok. Like, basketball stars are big on TikTok. It's just it's just an algorithm and a distribution platform. So you can present yourself, whatever's true to your band, true to your label. Like, it's just, but you got to be there. You got to be willing to do it. And to me, like, if you're going to do one thing, like we talked earlier, like, you need to be on every social network. If I'm a band, I'm focusing on 3. I'm doing YouTube, I'm doing TikTok, I'm doing Instagram. I'm focusing on short form vertical content, like let's call it like say TikToks or Instagram Reels. And I'm posting the exact same thing on Reels, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. And once you if you get better at it, or you have more time, or you have someone in the band or the label that's really interested in this and quite good at it, then maybe you vary off for different things. But that can get you to the right audience just by making one piece of content and putting it on all 3 social networks.
So I think one of the things that I always get caught up with when I'm doing that, because I mean, that is what we're trying to do right now, is like just posting this short form everywhere and hoping that people catch on to like our cool interviews with the people we've had and like what we're talking about with them. But I think that like one of the things that I've always experienced is like, well, why is it that my content isn't being seen by like 1 million people? Or why am I not being followed by like every single person with an Instagram account? And like, kind of understanding that like the band that does a 70-minute concept record with multiple books probably isn't going to be opening for Taylor Swift. They're not going to be Garth Brooks. They're going to be, more like hardcore fans. But like, how do you kind of balance that, like the visibility side and then the how many people are actually paying attention and how many people are interested in it? Like, how do you balance those 2 things?
Yeah, I mean, so like in marketing, like there's an idea, not even an idea, it's like addressable audience. Like who is the addressable audience for what you're making for like a product? That's gonna be true of bands too. It's like for most post-hardcore bands, they're not gonna reach outside of the overall number of post-hardcore fans in the world. That's their primary addressable audience. To your point, like Agi, they are their audience is going to be folk, concept records. Like it's niches of niches. Mm-hmm. That said, I really believe like everyone has unique stories to tell, and like you can go find the proper audiences through this stuff. So like, I mean, like a non-music example, I'm doing this goofy thing where I'm trying to play like basketball at the highest level I ever had. Like I played through college. I'm 34. My body's broken at this point, but I found out pro 3-on-3 is a thing. So I was like, let's try to see if I can do this thing. In 2 months, I have 30,000 TikTok followers. I average between 50 and 100,000 views per video. And it's grown my Instagram on accident. And I've doubled my Instagram on accident just from posting this stuff and built this brand new TikTok. And I'm a rec league basketball player. Like you watch me play, I'm the loppiest basketball player you've ever seen.
Loppy.
Loppy.
That's a real word.
My body does not move in a graceful fashion. I'm 6'5", 230. There's a lot of body moving in different places. But like the reason I bring that up is like, to me, every band has really unique stories that they can share about who they are and why someone should be interested. Like, and granted, if I'm a band, I'm focused on the music. Like that's the thing you got to do most. Like when we think about what drives someone to watch a TikTok or short form content, it's always a reflection of what they think are the first 2 seconds of that content. And it's 1.7 seconds is how long Meta says you have to earn someone's attention at this point. So if I'm a band, it's short, and it's like, and we all know, like, we rationally know this because we're scrolling TikTok, we go fast, like, and Twitter is way worse.
Yeah.
But this is where it's like, if I'm a band, if I see like this is so nitpicky, like Polyphia, one of my favorite bands. And I think Polyphia, for if we were to say like creative strategy, like in my industry, to me, they've nailed it. Every one of their music videos just shows them playing in different environments, as it should, because people listen to Polyphia because they're a technically proficient band and want to see the fingers move fast and want to see the drums. And for them to ever make a video that didn't have them do that would be a complete strategic miss. Mm-hmm. Something I would love to see them do is they do a lot of like really slow pan up shots to start videos. And in my world, like of marketing advertising, that's a death sentence because people click away. Like that's like my one, like, and that's such a nitpicky me thing, but this is also the difference. Like, and they're so proficient, like they will be one of the biggest bands we've ever seen come out of that scene. But that kind of stuff does matter when we're looking at like short form content. That's why a band, don't start your TikTok on your slow swell verse. Like start it on like the chorus and beats or the first drum beat of that catchy part. Or like for you guys, like for a podcast, like the reason my TikToks are performing is because everything's framed up at the beginning from each piece as like a very, I don't want to call it clickbait, but it's like an emotional trigger of a title. So like I could have done, like the one I posted today, I could have put like, and my latest 3-on-3 game, but what it says is I played the number 2 3-on-3 team in the US.